They said he was broken, a man who had lost everything but his scars. Yet, when the millionaire stepped into that dim, cramped room and saw the war veteran asleep on the floor with his twin babies curled up against his chest, something in his heart shattered wide open. That moment, raw, unfiltered, unforgettable, would change 3 lives forever. Stay with me, because what happens next will leave you breathless. The room was smaller than most people's garages, the walls peeling from years of neglect, and the air heavy with the scent of damp wood. On the floor lay James, a 35-year-old Army veteran whose body carried both visible and invisible wounds. Beside him, curled under his arms, were 2 tiny bundles wrapped in faded blankets, his twin babies, Emma and Noah. James had been through deserts hotter than fire and nights darker than pitch, but nothing prepared him for single fatherhood. His wife had passed away during childbirth, leaving him to raise the twins alone while still battling nightmares of the battlefield. With no steady income, every dollar he earned from odd construction jobs went to baby formula, diapers, and the rent he could barely keep up with. Tonight, he couldn't afford the electricity bill. The lights were out, and the heater had gone silent hours ago. Still, James held his children close, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. "Daddy's here. Daddy won't let you go cold." He didn't notice the door slowly creak open. On the threshold stood Richard Cole, a man the newspapers called the reluctant millionaire. He had built an empire of real estate and investments, but he carried a secret bitterness. Despite his wealth, his mansion felt empty, echoing with silence since he had never known the warmth of family. Tonight, Richard was there not by chance but because his assistant had begged him to check on a veteran who was months behind on rent for a building Richard owned. Richard expected excuses, maybe anger. What he didn't expect was this sight, a man in worn-out clothes lying on the bare floor, his body curled like a shield around 2 fragile children. For the first time in years, Richard froze. His world of marble floors and crystal chandeliers had never shown him this kind of raw love. He stood motionless, his throat tightening, his chest heavy with emotions he didn't even understand. When James stirred awake, he sat up abruptly, embarrassed. I can explain. Just give me another week, I'll find the money." But Richard didn't answer right away. Instead, his gaze remained fixed on the twins. Their little fists clutched their father's shirt as though it were the only anchor they had in the world. It wasn't pity Richard felt, it was admiration. And a strange, painful recognition of everything he himself had never known. That night, Richard made a decision that would intertwine his life with theirs in ways none of them could yet imagine. The next morning, James was startled when a knock echoed on the door. Expecting an eviction notice, he opened it cautiously, only to find Richard standing there, holding 2 large bags of groceries and a folded stroller. James's pride flared. "I don't need charity." Richard's voice was calm but firm. "And they don't need to go hungry because of your pride." That sentence silenced James. He stepped aside reluctantly, allowing Richard to place the groceries on the counter. The babies stirred in their makeshift crib, and Richard, almost awkwardly, knelt beside them. Emma giggled, her tiny hand gripping his finger. It was the first time in years Richard felt something other than loneliness. Over the weeks that followed, Richard kept showing up. He helped James fix the heater, bought baby clothes without asking, and even watched the twins so James could attend a job interview. Slowly, the walls James had built around his heart began to crack. But the road wasn't smooth. James wrestled with his sense of failure, his belief that accepting help made him weak. One night, after Emma fell ill and James panicked at the thought of hospital bills he couldn't afford, he broke down in front of Richard. "I fought in wars, Richard. I survived bombs, bullets, and blood. But this fatherhood thing, it's breaking me. I can't do it alone." Richard placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone anymore. Let me stand with you. Maybe I wasn't meant to fight battles, but I can fight this one, with you." That was the turning point. Together, they formed an unlikely bond, James teaching Richard about sacrifice and love, Richard teaching James about building stability and hope. Slowly, James got back on his feet, securing a steady job with Richard's help. The twins began to thrive, their laughter filling the little apartment. Months later, James no longer slept on the floor. He had a small, decent bed, a warm home, and most importantly, he had someone who believed in him. At a quiet dinner one evening, Richard looked across the table at James and the twins, their faces glowing in the soft light. He whispered almost to himself, "Funny how I thought I was helping you, but all along, you were saving me." And so, what began with a war veteran sleeping on a cold floor ended with two broken men healing through the innocence of two children. This isn't just a story about hardship, it's a story about second chances, about the power of human connection, and about how sometimes the richest hearts belong not to the wealthiest, but to those who know what it means to lose everything and still choose love. Because in the end, family isn't about blood or money, it's about who shows up when the world turns its back.